Where the first announcement of a positive case of COVID-19 initially made the news, there was an air of trepidation, a heightened concern that was initially focused on travel, health, and then a host of other sectors that included business, agriculture, and trade. A lockdown ensued when COVID-19's first patient reached our shores, and then another. At first, fear, worry, anxiety, leading on to concern, perplexion, and eventually mounting frustration, followed by what is now very common, feigned ignorance. An obvious aside to the Kubler-Ross theory that describes the internal emotional journey that individuals experience when dealing with change or transition. A lot of these feelings, however, were focused on the aforementioned sectors. With health being the exception, all others were economic avenues that provided for a large portion of the population an income. The government's massive stimulus package aimed at reviving a suddenly stagnant economy that would drop from an estimated 6% GDP to half of that, however targeted at providing at first the basic salaries of government workers before being utilized within various provincial and district governments for agricultural and SME growth. None, however, was provided for the education sector. The so-called future of PNG left largely to fend for themselves. Innovation occurs in times of stress, and the sector responsible for educating Papua New Guinea has been as stressed as the others. That education has struggled is an understatement, and each successive government has done little to place full emphasis on its continued evolutionary improvement. When COVID-19 hit PNG, it exposed even more the severe limitations in the system. The most affected of schools in Papua New Guinea were located in the capital, Port Moresby. 2 lockdowns and a combined 3.5 weeks behind have seen NCD schools fight to stay in the learning race. Some have fared better than others. In August, we visited 2 schools on the outskirts of the National Capital District.
The students a few students have expressed it, but you can see from the reaction of many students that they are just keeping quiet about it, but that they are afraid to, what's going to happen to them. Because these students travel back and forward, and they use public transport as well, and they are afraid they could catch it at any time because of the increased number of cases now.
Maranville Principal Monica Anga says the lockdown wasn't something they'd planned for, but it allowed them to test out certain elements of learning that have yet to be fully explored.
But this COVID-19 has made us try to look at a better way, maybe in terms of technology, that we have to, every school must be prepared to have that.
A stone's throw away, De La Salle Secondary School. Their principal, Brother Anthony Swami, facing different challenges.
When we are come to the closer of the term 2, that's a lockdown came, so that students were prepared for their assessment, second assessment, which was delayed, and the preparation for the end of term exam was delayed. So it's affected a lot of our boys. Mentally they were affected because they were asked to stay at home for 6 weeks, when then it was really hard for us to bring them back to the normal mindset. That was a big challenge.
Brother Anthony also making a distinct comparison between the boys' school he manages to Monica Keanga's Maranville.
Facility. I don't think any one of the system schools in PNG, especially in NCD, has that online facility. I don't know how many schools have the internet facility for everyone, especially for administration, staff, and the students. A lot of few schools, international schools, those who have well up with the money, the financially sound enough, they are able to have online classes, or they have the facility to buy. But like system schools in PNG, especially NCD, I don't think any one of the schools have that facility, or they are capable to buy. I don't think the government has supported it.
To put that into perspective, we visited St. Joseph's, another Catholic school, and one that has embraced technology. The school was forced into closure after a teacher tested positive for COVID-19 during mandatory testing. Technological limitations are obvious. It is an expensive exercise implementing the concept of remote learning. Director Father Ben Fleming saying that using an online platform has been highly beneficial for their students.
It has proved during these lockdown periods extremely beneficial, and we have a good IT system. Our students have, and our staff, all our staff have laptops and have internet access. The majority of the students also do, and have, when they're at school, certainly have internet access. We've gone through, especially over the last 3 weeks, even before this lockdown, the senior staff and I talked about Plan A, Plan B and Plan C of how to deal with this, and luckily we did. We didn't expect this, but we planned as best we could. So yes, we've been able to post online some learning modules. We talked about streaming a lesson. That's a little more difficult. Takes up we looked at how many megabytes that takes up for each stream. And of course, not all our students have access at home. They don't have, all of them don't have internet access at home, of course. Of course, it's expensive, and not all parents have some sort of plan or whatever. So, but we're doing the best we can. Certainly the investment in IT has proved to be it's a godsend, basically.
Investment over the years into the potential of using an online apparatus has served them well. St. Joseph's, like a handful of international educational institutions in PNG, is well set up to continue to provide for a largely absent student population.
Socially, the school's probably going to be a little bit different. As we get health advice, maybe we've got to look at our classes, our class sizes, and how we organise that, how the children socialise, and you can't stop them. I just noticed that, the last couple of weeks before this lockdown, they were just so happy, and they love being together, and they miss that. And it's hard to say, that group sitting there just chatting away and having fun. Sorry, stop it. Distance. It's just too hard.
What is familiar with all three schools, that despite being mission or church-run institutions, private or otherwise, they are still bound by the directives of the education department.
So that is actually, if we look at effectively the learning has been taken place in the classroom. We have tried to make arrangements through online and radio and TV programs, but that is not the same as a face-to-face learning experience. So obviously the children's education has been affected.
Dr. Uga Kombra is the current Secretary for Education. This week, he was among a small number of guests for Borneo Pharmaceuticals' donation of disposable face masks for schools in NCD. When asked on the potential for other modes of learning, he had this to say.
The reality we know is that not every student has got a computer or has got access to internet. So we have done what we can, but it's a challenge for us to roll it out right across the country. And education alone, we cannot be able to do that. We're just providing the opportunity, but it has to be everyone contributing to make it happen.
The first of the schools to be affected by a lockdown, though, was one that used to be called Murray International. Now called Ted Diro, it suffered directly after the PNG Defence Force headquarters, Murray Barracks, was shut down. Head teacher Hannah Charlie saying it was a difficult period for them.
The kids were so much affected, even the teachers were so much affected, and there were withdrawals from all the students from all grades, from grade 3 up to grade 8. The parents came to withdraw some of their students that made a drop in the figure, actual figure of the school.
And while there is joy on the faces of these children, The hard realities of having an education under these trying times cannot be overlooked. When pharmaceutical company Borneo Pacific donated face masks to almost 50 schools in NCD, an official from the education department gave some startling figures globally of the impact that COVID-19 had had on children attending school.
The COVID-19 has disrupted learning of 1.5 billion children, representing over 89% of the world's student population, including all 2.4 million students in Papua New Guinea. The gain of expanding access to education, improving quality of education, are being compromised because of this pandemic.
COVID-19's impact on education will not be felt immediately, and the proper development of PNG's young generation is extremely crucial in ensuring the 45-year-old nation matures to be able to provide a capable, quality populace with the capacity to think for itself for a cliched, brighter future.
Children bounce back. Once they're back with their friends, and if we can get back to relatively normal between now and the end of the year, I think they'll be happy. Happy children are better learners. They apply themselves much better to everything when they're in an environment they like, enjoy and feel safe, and that's what we aim to provide.